I started with the wrapper. So I thought this was pretty cool. So CBS Sports has an API that, I should show you it quick. It's like pretty archaic. So like this is like the documentation. It's like not all that great, but it got the job done. So there was an API, there was a gem out there already that kind of hits all these endpoints, but the problem was is it just like did an exhaustive calls to each endpoint and didn't really make it usable for me. So, and you'll see why in a second. So the reason is that, so one of the endpoints was like players. So I'd be able to go pull like Aaron Rodgers. A different endpoint was stats. So I'd be able to get like stats if I knew a player's ID. But all I would be able to get was like, you know, their stats for the year. So I wasn't able to get like last week's stats or stats year to date. All these like types of things that I might want in this. So those were some of the methods I ended up building.
So the existing gem only let you hit those, or?
So the existing gem only let me like pull down like a player object, but then I couldn't call like player, like what was the player's last like stats last week? That wasn't built in. So that's kind of where I started to, I think, add some value. The other thing too is that you still only be able to find a player by their ID. So if you didn't know like the API ID, you wouldn't be able to get a player. So I built in this like search functionality. So if I search Aaron Rodgers, it'll pull down an array. I guess there's like some players with the same name in the league, but it'll pull down an array of all like the Aaron Rodgers that they find. And then if I did, let's see what I can do. Oh. So now once I get up like an actual like player, CBS Sports player object, I can look at it first. And I can call like last week's stats on that. So the search gives you back an array. And now I can find out what Aaron Rodgers stats were last week, which is like pretty cool from like building a fantasy football game perspective, because it used to be kind of difficult to do. So there are a lot of like logic that has to go into figuring out what was our last week's stats, what if there was a bye, all that kind of stuff. So there's definitely some like improvements that can be made there, but this gives me back some information in like a pretty clean format so that I can then start to like score out like how these fantasy teams did within this game. So that was like the first step, was to build this wrapper, and this was like the main thing, is how do I get this like value of like last week's stats. So there's like some logic around that. So this was also a good opportunity for me to do some like TD practice and like really think about building tests and that sort of thing. So
watch it, you got a syntax error. You accidentally added a ZX.
Oh, yes. So not that this is like a great way of like measuring stuff, but like I added this gem in, which basically like runs the stats on like my test coverage in the app. So for my libraries, which I was adding these like team setup things, I could basically check to see, all right, if this was my like class that I was using to like do the logic on teams, making sure that all these like tests had some sort of coverage around them. Now this is like, obviously it's like very like abstract in terms of how this works, but it gave me at least a good idea, like some good metric to know and feel comfortable that like I was getting a good amount of coverage. And it worked as I expected, because just today I made a bug and then my RSpec text failed, and then I was able to like kind of go back and fix it. So
what is the gem that you use?
This is Simple Cove or something like that. And it's pretty easy. Every time you run your RSpec, your test suite, it like updates this like link. You have like a coverage folder in your app that gets added. So you can go and see what your test coverage is on your controllers and your models and stuff. So it just kind of helps me like get a snapshot of like where I'm like falling short. Obviously you can see I haven't done a lot of controller tests yet, so that's definitely needs improvement. So yeah, that was like, you know, my first two goals were like think about building a gem, or like at least a Ruby wrapper. So did that with the CBS Sports thing, and then learning a little bit more about how TDE works, so this can help me do that. And the last was getting an app working. So this is kind of the app. It's on Roku, but I just found a bug, so I don't know why it happens, but so this is kind of the idea of the app. So a player could get here, they could join a league, or you can create a league if you need to do that as well. It's probably asleep right now.